Okay, you want a quick sound check? Yes, looks like everything's on. Wonderful. All right. Welcome back to Painting on PaintSense. I'm Vince. Glad to have you along for the ride. Please let me know if you have any questions as we go here. And I will be let's move some things around here. Nope, not that one. So I can see the chat as well. Don't have my window sized properly. Oh, there it goes. All right. Now we are ready. Awesome. Okay, so today you can probably see the outline of a dove. And that's exactly, you see the reference image on the left. Probably see some of the work that I've done, been able to get accomplished in the bottom right-hand screen. We're coming along, you know. I mean, if you bounce back all the way to episode 1, you can see just how much has been painted over the last couple of weeks. It is definitely one of those things you just keep working on until you get there. Please, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Be glad to help. And with that, I'm going to get started. I think I'm going to take the next step up here. Adjust my screen just a little bit. Working on a big painting like this, I don't really have an easel that can lower and raise. I've seen some really cool ones, though. I would love to do something like that in here someday, but we'll see about that. I have to kind of pick up and drop the panel. So right now the panel is resting on the floor so that I can get to some of these higher reaches and on the step ladder, just on something I can come up and down on. Eventually, even the step ladder won't do and I'll have to get a little higher. But for now, it's going to work. Let's get started. So when it comes to the dove here, there is not a lot that there's, you know, I like to start with like a darkest dark, and that's not really present. It is this dove is I was able to use a taxidermy dove from a local museum and get a lot of images of it. So the reference is mine, and I've painted this particular dove many times. It showed up in many paintings, but there's not like a darkest dark. So I've mixed a few values here together. Some are like a little more yellowy because, you know, if I take a glance at it, I feel like I see some more yellower parts and some of the grays. So biggest thing is to just begin setting a key thing to compare to. So since I don't have my darkest dark, in this case, I'm going to start with my lightest light. So where I deem is basically, you know, almost white. And that spot right there, I feel like it's just almost glowing, maybe slightly, even on the photograph that I took, maybe slightly overexposed. But that gives me, because I don't have a darkest dark, now I'm going to use the lightest area I can find, I can put in so that I can constantly compare back to that highlight. Yeah, it is a little different than how I normally approach it. Normally I approach things, you know, dark to light. But in this case, I'm not really going to find a good dark like that to key off of. So I'm going to start with the lights instead. A few feathers here that are catching the light right at the end, and I'm going to want to put some of that higher highlight on there. What that'll do is I'll create a nice cupping here of the wing, and I just think it should end up looking pretty good. One of the exciting things about doing animals, doing birds, these sort of things is like you can really let your brush do a lot of the talking. And because, you know, when it comes to feathers or fur, I mean, you're using more or less fur. Not, you know, these are synthetic brushes, but you're more or less using a tool that already lends itself to the very textures you're painting. And so one of the great things and important things to do then is to not lose some of that brush mark when we begin to fill in the rest of this. Leave some of that there and let it work for you. So because I established like the highest highlight with this brush here, I'm going to now set it aside because I'd like to keep that nice and light, nice and almost white, so that I can jump back in and create some lighter values when I need to. Excellent. So just like I do in the other ways, when I'm working from dark to light, this time I'm working light to dark, I'm going to take my next step. So I'm going to get a mid-tone brush, and this one we're probably going to use a lot. And I'm going to look at some of the kind of mid-grays. I think I still need it fairly light. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of that and come in onto this next feather to see if, yeah, it probably doesn't get dark enough fast enough, but that's a good start. And then around some of these areas that I already established as the highest highlight, snag a little bit more of that. These marks, light just flowing over the back of the wing there, very beautiful. It's things you can get excited about. This dove wasn't perfectly white, the taxidermied one, and so I will have to invent some areas. But before I do that, I will do as much as I can in areas that I see that I've got with certainty. I mean, I've got something I can look at directly, and if I've got that, then I'm going to use it, and then I'll invent kind of around those details that I have. Okay. Next move, kind of looking around, seeing if maybe this little feather right here, maybe some more of that. Okay. Right. Hey, it's already, you know, looking kind of like a bird. We didn't do all that much. Some there. Okay. Next step to the dark. I was here. I'm going to move into, I don't know if that's quite enough. I'm going to take a step to here and here. And I think those are going to be the next move that I make. So I'm still very much in the like block it in mode. So get as much information in that's close as it can be. It's obviously nice when it's described and it works, and the kind of quicker the better, in my opinion. There's an honesty to some of that first creation of some of those first marks. There's an intuitive kind of feel that happens there. It's really important. Block in. And even if I get some color down here, I can work into it. It's again the exciting and wonderful thing of painting animals is you can use that brush energy to emphasize the way that animals are like always moving, right? You don't you're like kind of always on the go. And I think, kind of like glancing at this, I think that these feathers here are about this value. They might be a little, there's slightly cooler, more blue rather than the yellow in them. But this whole plane is about the same value. So I'm going to block it all in and see where we go. I'm going to get right on the edge. In some ways, when I unfocus my eyes, that's my trick to like get at the like necessary details. Unfocus my eyes and I kind of look what are happening with these feathers right on the end. What are more or less all the same value. Yeah, there's some shifts in there, but the nice thing is I can adjust that for later. But if we could get these main shapes in, that'll be all right. Trying to break this up a little bit. And then as it comes down here, so many of those shapes really just are about the same. Okay. Now, rule number one, when depicting anything from life, it's always much more chaotic than it seems. And if we just look at these feathers as they come around here, we look at the reference, they're sort of perfectly spaced throughout here. Then there's a big break between one, and then one feather is kind of broken on the edge, and then you have the rest of the feathers almost creating a straight line by themselves. And that's the sort of thing you find in life. It's always varied. And the more you can really pay attention to that and capture that, the better your artwork is going to be. All right, so I've done a lot of bouncing around. I'm just trying to get these in. I'm going to have to invent the little legs and feet. And the tail feathers. Ooh, it's a lot of invention here. But if I come close on those areas, but really nail each of the wings and the head, that will be, the viewer will focus on those things first. And as long as it's not so bad, you're okay with letting some of the other parts be a little less undone. Just like when you're having a conversation with somebody, you look them in the eyes, and while you're sort of taking in all the rest of the stuff around, in some ways, all of that is almost like out of focus. And so you can think about that as a way to think about when we emphasize something in a painting, describe it more than we would describe something else, or if the sort of main focal points are that where the eye naturally goes, if those are handled well, sometimes that's enough. To fight it out on some other part of the painting. All right, getting these shadows in here. It's funner when the paint will start to move. That's why the quicker that I get this blocked in, the better. So I can get to the fun stuff. Again, trying to use that brush. See some fun things we're going to do up there in that head eventually. Just going to stick around to watch that happen. That little shadow there on the back. A little bit of light here. Coming up on to the wing. Notice the marks I'm making too, because we're going to use these marks to really describe feathers. And the same case would be if you were doing a pet portrait or an animal portrait. Because we're going to use the marks, I'm making these contour marks just like this because I really want to send that wing back. I'm kind of imagining it as a bit of a cylinder going back into space. That's where that cylinder, those shapes are, the more that I round the mark itself, the more that's going to come forward. Same for here, right? I open up the mark this way because I really want this front wing to be coming right at us, right at the viewer. It's really an amazing thing that in painting, you can emphasize space simply by how you make a mark with the brush. A little bit lighter edge to this top feather. Stand absolutely still. I don't make the stepladder creak. And I can make this area back behind a little darker, and it will be okay. And I don't really have a good angle. Sometimes on this particular dove that I grabbed all these references from the museum, I amazingly, so many of the things that I did, there was kind of glowing, a light behind the wing. I'm kind of surprised I don't really have that here. Very interesting to paint light glowing behind something. This edge, this wing edge is going to be kind of lost until some of the background elements get put in. And as you can see, it's architectural, so that'll be fun. One thing about architectural stuff, you need to really got to get it right. Get back in position here. deciding where to go next. That's what I do. It's like, okay, where? And putting the next few marks down, where are they going to have the most impact? Help me to see better. It's kind of fun too if you play around with the brush marks and capturing birds or animals. You'll be amazed at leaving it just a little undone actually gives it a lot of life. Yeah, I think that speaks to the thing that I said earlier about animals sort of always being in motion. So if your mark also keeps some of that motion, so you'll say, oh, I kind of make a mark and pull it, and like leave it. Hair, whether you're painting it on the model or hair at all, is definitely one of those things that it just gets overdone really quick. Overdo it. It doesn't need much. A little bit more white to the front end of this. See, I'm going to make a mark like this. I'm going to carve that mark around that muscle there. Really want it to come toward us. So all these marks on this edge, I'm going to kind of pull around. Get a little bit of light on this edge. I won't do it as light on that far end, but if I want this to come out, that's another thing. I mean, so this is invention. Yeah, I see that, really bright line, but I kind of want to hint at at least one tail feather there, catching a lot of light on the edge. Since I've already have some paint built up there, I can work into that, make that swooping gesture mark. All right, we need to get the rest of this head in here and this. I'm still missing a lot of information. Right. A little darker there than I think. Around the eye. And the really awkward plastic eye that they put on this thing. The taxidermy. Still good. Helps me know the overall placement. And, I can look closer at other references. For the time being, I'll do a little something here just to give it most of that paint in. Dark on the underside. I do keep around some small brushes just for times like this. With the beak, I want to just add something there so I can kind of see that whole line. Get a little more very yellowy orange. A little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of add yellow. I'm just going to pull a line down through here. It's not nearly as light as I wanted it to be. Grab some more yellow and some white. Okay, that's a good start. Well, I've got this little brush out. Just hint at the eye. I'm not really going to try to tell of the eye very much. Put some no, we've done not done a good job there. I just want something there that just helps me with my drawing. This brush is kind of trashed. It's all flayed out, but I keep using them. Probably longer than I should. In that respect, I am a traditional guy who just tends to use up everything until it has almost no function anymore. All right, so I'm going to kind of hint at the cupped in feet and legs just a little bit. Right. What don't I have in yet? That's what I'm asking myself now. I really need to describe these feathers up here. Very yellow on the end there. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow. Yeah, it's nice. White, little yellow. Push that a little more. I think this is an opportunity to exaggerate. Because I mean, we're working largely in whites, and there's a lot of color in whites. So like it, here we go. Kind of blue underneath here, not that dark. See, I'll make a bad mark, and I'll grab more. The way I wanted to shift it, just a little lighter, just like so. Let's get that all the way up underneath there. Okay, I'm just trying to look around. Fill in the you can see, you know, there's still some areas that just don't have any paint in them yet. And it's really hard to make final decisions when you haven't even got everything covered. Soften out this transition a little bit. And even as I did that, I'm probably going to come back and still pop a little bit of bright highlight on those edges, just because I want them to come back. Nice. All right. I do want to capture each of those initial, these kind of 4 feathers out here, and a few of the differences here. And I'm going to be very selective on how I piece that together. Now look at it as opportunity. It's an opportunity to really get it right. And just a few of those things, it's just amazing how much we're going to achieve. So keep watching in a short amount of time. And all I'm doing is paying attention to like key shapes, like in the wing. What I am not going to do is try to describe every feather. What the way forward will be to begin abstracting it into like shapes that I can see, and then I'll try to talk about that as I'm doing it. If I stop talking about that, just shoot me a comment and remind me to do it. I can give you a little bit of the internal workings of my mind. I'm always assessing what move needs to happen next. So I want to start to get the shadow underneath that wing there. I think I'm going to need a little bit more of a yellowy dark. So I'm adding some yellow ochre into that. It just looks a little, yeah, I like that color better. And this color casts a little bit of a shadow underneath. So kind of grouping these 4 together here. Let's see, respond. Respond to my spouse. Okay. And so I'm going to put some of these darker values in. Following some of those shapes. How about this? These 4 little outcropping feathers that cast this other shadow back behind. I'm going to put that in. Again, like keeping the brush really loose. I mean, I can't overemphasize that. If you stay loose with the brush and don't over describe, like the loose nature of each mark will do the work for you. Just don't overdo it. Okay. Try to be very. So each one of these feathers, I think, is going to be important to describe. The rest of these are going to start to work, kind of run together, because a lot of it is the same throughout here. And then, so I want to describe 1, 2, 3, 4, much of the same shape, and then some of the ways in which we catch a little bit of light on one side or other of the feather in here. But on the whole, this whole area is kind of one big value shape. And I'm going to let it be that. I'm not going to change it. All right, here's that shadow underneath this one here. Casting a very small shadow. Use the edge of my brush. It's a lot of yellow. A lot of times when light is shining through like a white object, like white cloth or something like that, it just takes on a bit of a yellowy color as it shines through. Okay, a couple loose marks there. Do the same underneath the next one. I'm also kind of looking to see where there's like a big grouping. So how about like right here in this, there's just like a bigger mark. I'm going to choose that one, and then I'm going to little one here, and then I'm going to bring that in just a little more. I do like the shadow on the very edge of that feather too. Okay. Now we get a little bit of a edge from this whole feather being kind of cupped a little bit, so we're seeing it in shadow all the way down. And pop that up into there. Yeah, this one's really rounded. It's okay to work the edges a little bit, but even that little bit that I did there, I already did something I didn't like as much. So let it be. It's too light. Knock that down some. Same there too. Okay, I think I'm going to do a little bit of the reverse now. I'm going to come back to that white brush. Because I'm always trying to keep the overall VOCs down, that's volatile organic compounds. I just don't want a lot of things off-gassing in my studio. I just do a lot of brushes instead of cleaning the brushes. And so I just change the brush when it needs to change to a new area. Okay, I'm adding some light values back in. I'm going to go a little yellower, use them slightly darker than my lightest light. Snagging just a little bit of cad yellow. And what I'm looking for, there's a few areas like right here I think could use a little bump. And you see, I'm just like setting the brush down and just letting it just slide off, creating a little softer edge there. I need it a little thinner so I can take this filbert, turn it on its side, get more of a line, or just depending on what width I need, I can turn this and achieve that. See, I'm even going to catch a little bit of this underside here, like that. There are a few, just now noticing them. So with some of the shadows we've already made here, I might be able to do the reverse over here. So we're catching a little bit of the top of one of these guys. It's going that way. And here's another. You know, and maybe I think this mark is a little wide. You know, I can back on the other opposite side of that. Asking myself, where are some of these other feathers? There's like another one right here. Still floating around. But I'm happy with how the wing is coming. I need to get to some of the other parts. Yeah, it's doing all right. Actually, before I do that, let's come in here and catch the top half of some of these feathers just to break it up a little bit. So see that top half shape of like this particular feather. Grab that. Same for like this one. One of these has a nice break in it. I'm going to need to work on that. Got some areas that are overlapping feathers, right? That are creating some interest. I don't know if I like it very much. Do think it needs... There are some areas that are a little broken, and maybe if I add some of that in. Again, quick, swift marks, keeping it loose, trying to follow. I don't know. Not sold on it yet. Really kind of deeper shadow here. Maybe the farther back than when I put it. Let me get that in. And also in my reference, I'm using an old version of Photoshop, like old, and it was the time that they first had what was called content-aware fill, and where you could fill in. It would like kind of like assess the image. It was like sort of pre-AI. It would assess the image and say, should probably fill this sort of a thing in right here. Sometimes I'll do that with like, if I want to cover up, in this instance, this taxidermy dove is perched. And so I just want to kind of clean up the bottom, and I can't, of course, like AI, tell it what to make, but very useful tool that was really cool back in 2011 when I used it. So I paid for that version, and I still use it to this day. I'm gonna be a holdout, a long holdout. to the Adobe subscription model. You get to use what you pay for, right? So these darker values in here. So even these marks are kind of all rounded. Like this is the body is its own sphere, and then these are the sort of cylinders that are sort of coming out toward us or going away from us. But the marks I make, I'm going to make rounded marks. They're going to help. Your brush stroke will do a lot to give you volume. Just the mark alone, nothing else. A little bit more of the tail feathers down here. And one of my main goals is to finish this today and probably stick on for another 45 minutes or so. And then I might do some of the backgrounds since I'm up here. Hard to say. I have to have some level of whimsy in what I do. This might be a little arbitrary at times, but that's one of the ways I keep it fresh. Just say, oh, I'll do this today. And lift the painting up, go here, do there, stay fresh with it. Okay. It's getting there. I don't know that it's all that interesting yet, but it's getting there. Got more parts of the head. Okay. I've not got the nice big highlight on this front end. White down a little farther. Should be using smaller brushes, but I'm not. That's another one of the ways you can kind of force the looseness is if you're trying to describe it all, the big brush, then you sort of have to stay just a little loose. You're not going to be able to get the detail you want. You may just get something really interesting in your mark. Just push the values a little bit on there. Try to give them a little more oomph, a little more contrast, make it more exciting. There's my transitions here. Slowly working into that edge. The light coming from this direction on all the models, including my animal models. That's starting to get a little too perfect. See, these sort of like spaced out marks. We have a tendency to make those patterns happen. Gotta fight those back to keep them from stealing the nature of chaos in the natural world. Let's see how far. Can't I scroll down? I don't know, but I can't scroll down. I was going to see how much time has elapsed. Don't know. Finish all my paint around. I'm still sticking to the big brush, so you know, this is, if it's this wide, but I can use the corner since it's a flat. Kind of make a line if I go this way. You know, one tool. Yeah, today I've only used 2 brushes so far. One for the lights, and one for, no, take that back, 3. I did use one for getting just a little bit of the top of the beak in. But even that was a really splayed and kind of nasty and beat up brush. Okay, I'm going to step back and take a look at this. Back into my perch. Describe a little more of the peak. This I'm using almost direct. Some of the yellows, yellow ochre, and cad yellow. The eyes are lighter too. See if I can capture a little bit of that. Rounding it. A little bit of white will make a nice little glint on the front side here. A little more life. Okay, now that everything is for the most part filled in, I've covered just about the whole thing. with the initial block in. Now I take a look at it and I just say, all right, what needs work? So I see immediately didn't quite have it all covered as I just stated I did. I don't like that move. It felt deeper when it was darker. Oh, and that's one of those tricks you can use anytime. Light colors come forward, dark colors recede. So if I want this to be a little deeper in there, I just darken it so that it that sort of sits back in that space there. Okay. I see some darker shapes in here that I don't think I've quite captured. So I'm going to go a little darker. Like this gray was a little too blue, so I added some of my burnt sienna in there. Still keeping those marks loose. There's a little more contrast there. I think that's helping it. Just gonna hint at those tucked in legs there. Go a little darker in this corner. It goes down to the tail feathers. This is probably one of our darkest areas on the bird. Noticing my drawing is off a little bit. Keep grabbing those darker values because I think there's a few that I'm missing. You probably just hear me sort of saying some of the same things again, where yeah, I'm looking. What's working, what's not, what needs more attention. Constant comparison. This is a comparison that's okay. Hey, the rest of that, like worldly comparison about who has what or whatever, you can set that aside. But this is good comparison right here, where you are saying, all right, is this, what do I need to do to make this closer to what I'm seeing? I think one of the next places I really need to work on is right in here. I've got a little more detail. This back wing, because it's going away from us, is going to be less important overall. We still need to, get it right, obviously. Oops. That's the danger of dragging your colors. Once you drag the brush in there, of course, I I now have a bunch of that white on the brush, so I better come back in here and recharge if I intend it to do something different. Quiet day in the chat. If you're watching, don't be shy. Ask me a question. Back. I think some of those things suggested helping out. Yeah, I think so. I'm missing some contrast in the head. That is the next move. All right. One of the things when I look at this, I see this area here. So this itself is a bit of sphere, and then this is a cylinder that then moves into another sphere. So every one of these little muscles and kind of groupings of feathers, I do want to try to capture. And we're just catching the light a little bit here. So I'm going to brush mark this way, soften that up some, brush mark again that way. So we sort of follow and create a little bit more depth, I hope. And underneath here. Even connect those slightly, but I don't know. I do it because then I have this nice bit of shadow that kind of breaks through here. Don't want it to be too dark. A little more here, just little marks. And starting them all on this side. Flipping them back this way. And that is starting to create just some of that break, those small feathers that surround the body of the dove. And this might be a good time to get out the smaller brush and make a few moves on the edge here that will continue to emphasize what I'm talking about. And just using the small brush, get a little bit of that light highlight, add some yellow to it just so that it's not white by itself. And just add a little bit to the tops. Make it slightly uneven here and there. Same for the bottom. You have areas where slight bit of light just touches it as a break, right? A break on that edge so that it's not just perfectly the same all the way through. And I know I just put the lights on, but then I see, I don't know how much of the markings, you know, this particular bit of taxidermy has, you know, it's kind of lines throughout here. Not so concerned at getting that just right, but what I might do is add a little something to just hint at it. Again, we've got to the smaller brushes, so now, I mean, everything has been blocked into the point that I would consider this refinement time. And this is oftentimes the thing that I don't share a lot of because it's just a slow process. And the changes are, you know, they take a long time. And look, I get it. This is the world we live in, but the videos just aren't as interesting, and therefore they're not as watched. So really want to kind of take you through, try to make some big moves quick that, you know, within an hour or so, you see the block in. I feel like that's kind of probably where we're at, maybe an hour, a little over that. So now I'm going to capture what I deemed to be just, that's a little too dark. Just some shadows underneath a couple of these feathers. I'm going to hint at maybe just that one there and maybe a little something right there. Not very much. Again, always trying to not overdo it. Do a little bit of a mark here. So each one of these is like a swoop. Imagining this kind of being a little bit of grouping of feathers. I mean, I see the shape when I, you know, look, but everything down underneath here gets a little mysterious. Sort of runs together. Slowly, there's a big form I want to capture here, even if I can't see it really in the reference, but imagining this is, again, one big sphere that I want to describe so that even if the reference is only going to help me so much, then I can still get in some of the detail that I need to get in. Really help it be and sit. I like that. Emphasize that a little more. And that's using the technique of light colors come forward, dark colors recede. I just made that a little darker because I wanted that wing to sort of sit back behind, and it did. I love when it works. It doesn't have to be. Remember, as you're painting your reference, you know, sometimes it's got problems. Don't trust it all the way down to the finished painting. There's going to be times where it's like, you know what, that's just unclear. I need to clear that. Or sometimes, oh, that's just too perfect. I'm going to need to make it a little more messy. So now, because I'm trying to keep a lot of those marks that I already make, I'm emphasizing some of the marks. So there's, I felt like there was some depth here that I hadn't quite captured. And so I wanted to get down nice, dark and deep in there, and then maybe even on this backside too. Sort of upper feathers rolling around. I'm starting to get a little satisfied with this. I want to capture this side of the head, which seems to me to have this sort of break almost right here, where the shadow is a little deeper. And I like that a little better. So one of the things that I would do next, I think, is look for maybe some slight color things. So some of the feathers have a little more blue in them than I initially put it down, especially like throughout here. That'd be one of the things one of the next steps that I make is like, okay, well, I'll add some blue to that and mix a color that's just very close to this, slightly a little more blue. Just put it in. Yellow along here. So all things that I'm going to begin doing next. Maybe I'll do the yellow one so you can see that come through. So I'm just getting, as crazy as it sounds, just playing between my two yellows. A little bit of cad yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre. I don't want it to be dark, it needs to be light. And I'm going to paint this into, gently kind of buff it into the middle of the feather here, stem. And just emphasize that yellowiness just a little bit all the way down. And what made me do that? I saw it and I thought it looked interesting. I wanted to put it in. See the same thing here. I want it to be a little lighter though. So it's catching the light. That still didn't do it. Closer. Yeah. Better. Might be okay if I... Maybe a little too much. Yep, it is. Go to extremes. This. Okay, that's better. Back and forth, back and forth. seeing those shifts, while they're very evident to me here, I feel like those get lost on the live stream, and it'll be a thing that really makes it look nice when it's installed. People will, I think, engage with the dove as it represents the spirit, but it may not get near the engagement that each of the saints will. So I still want it to be able to stand on its own and stand with them. More on these edges here. I hadn't quite cleaned that up yet. Some of the color from below. Hey, I think we're doing okay here. Kind of create a little more rounding here. Don't want to totally lose my brush strokes, but okay. I'm really pleased with where this is. I think it's a great place to just kind of pause and stop the video. Definitely thank you for watching. And if you have any questions about maybe some of the decisions I make, I know I just kind of get going and sometimes just forget to talk about what I'm doing or talk about other random stuff. Don't be shy. Something comes to your mind as you're watching this later or even 5 years from now. Drop the question in the comments. I'd be glad to answer. So thanks very much. And I'm going to keep working on this. And we'll see how it turns out in the end. Tune in next time. Thanks.